Morning.
Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I, have my phone on, just in case.
Understandable. I was. Like I said,
You don't get response very often, do you?
no, not from two people.
Yeah.
And no one's at a conference, so it's like,
Oh,
yeah, so it's just you, me. Neil and Lee, unless Peter shows up. Oh, and Julie will be.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's kind of weird walking in and, they were, I think it was Andrew on screen there was, turning the camera and everything. Okay.
I am alone.
Oh, How's your weekend?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dropped my GIS class because I hate GIS.
Ooh, see, I love
I
GIS.
hate it.
I got paid a lot of money to do GIS.
I will gladly never touch it again.
Really? Oh, man, what kind of course was it? like that.
Vector-based GIS.
What was it?
Vector-based GIS.
Yeah,
I don't like computer programs. I don't like computers.
were you programming like in Python or were you?
No, it was just creating, the first assignment was just creating layouts.
Oh, okay.
And I looked at it and I was like, this sucks.
So you
I'm
have,
gonna take public budgeting instead.
you have a bad teacher then probably.
He's a little alien. Reading his assignments is like jumping.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad, man. I did a lot of 3D analyses.
I've never, I mean, I was in a conservation planning course last semester and there was a program we had to use for our final project. Didn't even notice. Okay.
No, it transcribed it.
No, this is the Women's Commission guest, and then they said,
Oh,
I was in, oh, maybe.
yeah.
I don't know why, I mean, the Women's Commission is also meeting right now, but I don't know why.
Is this the,
Is this live?
We're like.
Yeah.
yeah, we're being transcribed as the Women's Commission?
Oh, I think they're doing both of us, maybe. Yeah,
Huh. Okay. So do we just proceed and then I just email them after to clarify?
To you, boss.
All right,
They're coming to you.
all right. Well, then I'm gonna call this meeting of the Monroe County Environmental Commission to order. It is 5:31 PM, May 16th, 2024. We're gonna do roll call. Andy,
Here.
Neil,
Present.
Commissioner Jones,
here,
Nolan, not here. Counselor Iverson, not here. Julia, not here. I am here. We do have a quorum. Moving on to public comment. Are there any members of the public?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
hi Jackie.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't hear you all. Are you having trouble because your mic is muted?
I'm able to hear you guys.
Our mic's not muted.
Can't hear Andrew either.
You need to make sure she's on as a presenter.
Was someone else able to hear us?
Yeah.
Andrew can.
Okay.
Andrew, he's TSD.
Let me check and see if it's something on my end. Hold on.
Could be your speaker.
Yeah. Andrew, can you make Jackie a presenter so she can, I believe she has some stuff to show us tonight.
She is. She should be able to share her screen.
Thank you. While Jackie figures that out, are there any members of the public who would like to make comment this evening? 5-minute time limit per speaker. Seeing no members of the public to give comment, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, assuming Jackie can hear us.
Yes. I'm all good now.
Perfect. All right, our guest speaker this evening is Jackie from the Monroe County Planning Department. Jackie, take it away.
All right. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Go ahead.
Okay. This other screen.
Screen on morning.
Okay. Are you able to see the PowerPoint screen that says Environmental Commission?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So thank you all for welcoming me here to the Environmental Commission. My name is Jackie. I'm the director of the Planning Department. And I wanted to speak a little bit to our county development ordinance today and hopefully have a good discussion with you all. It's still in this draft stage, so we're still taking comments and feedback. So I'm always interested in ways that we can integrate more sustainability measures into our current development ordinance, and happy to take any questions. Pretty informal, so just stop me if you have questions as I go along. It's a pretty short presentation, but yeah, just let me know. So I just want to go over a quick agenda. So I figure we could start with just what is the CDO, what's our timeline for adoption. We can look at one of the components of the county development ordinance, which is the draft zoning map, and then the other component to the county development ordinance, which is the text, and what I've called 2-pagers and use table will probably be most relevant to this group. So why do we need a new ordinance? The last time we updated our ordinance was in 1997, and piecemeal edits have been made since that time. We really need a whole revision top to bottom of the ordinance to make sure it complies with state statutes, new best practices, incorporates new uses that are coming online, things like that. We also have a number of zones. We currently have 45 zoning districts, and we want to move that down to 16 to make it easier for the public to use, more transparent, and also we just don't need that many zones. There's just not that much difference between some of the zoning districts that we have due to the history of how we have administered our zoning jurisdiction in the county. And then lastly, the number of uses that we have like a use table. So we regulate land use. That's going to be consolidated from 372 uses to 174. And that's going to hopefully allow people a little bit more flexibility within a use. And also changing uses won't be so rigid as people switch uses that they have on their property. So just in terms of a timeline, we have been working through all of the zoning and subdivision control ordinance chapters. And right now we're on the last module. So we are really honing in on the last items that we're hoping to have a final draft of. We're hoping to pull together modules 1 through 3 sometime in possibly August, and then we'd be moving to final adoption, hopefully by the end of this year. We're really striving and working very hard towards this target. It's been a long time. So one of the updates that I want to provide this group was a pretty new illustration that we put together and showed the Plan Commission. And I just want to explain what this is. So this is a conversion chart. So what it's showing you on the left-hand side was the 45 zones that I just said that we have. On the right-hand side are the 16 zones that we're moving towards. So if you can see here where my cursor is, these 4 zone districts right here, RM15, RM7, UR, and HR. These are 4 distinct zoning districts that will now just be integrated or consolidated into one zoning district, which is going to be called High Development Residential. Other information that this table provides is the minimum lot size that is required for that zoning district, how many acres we currently have in that zoning district, and then on the right-hand side will be what the minimum lot size is of that new zoning district and what the acreage is of that we're creating with the County Development Ordinance zoning map. And of course, this is still a draft. And then on the far right-hand side is the gain lost acres from existing to new zoning districts. So hopefully that provides some good information. I'm going to be posting this on our website, which is the monroecdo.com website, and it will have a little bit of a summary chart or how to use this document as well if you want. If you're a data person, you want to kind of dig in and see what's changing in terms of the zoning map. Okay, going back to the PowerPoint here. So I pulled together just some high level updates that I think are relevant for this group in terms of the text. So you have the zoning map changing, but that's important in and of itself, but it relates back to the zoning text. So as you're thinking through some of the environmental aspects of zoning, or what are things that the zoning code can do to create more sustainable landscapes, or create more incentives for different things, it's in the text. So we have what's called design standards. Those are things that when people want to develop their property, whether it's commercial or residential, they have to meet certain standards. So for commercial, that means landscaping. We want to include more incentives or requirements for tree preservation. Right now, we see a lot of developers that try to take into account the trees that are on the property, but I don't think our incentives are quite high enough for it to be a financial tipping point. So we want to really see more regulations or incentives regarding tree preservation as it relates to site design, and hopefully that will mean more tree preservation. They still have to plant a certain number of trees, but this will allow them to maybe plant fewer trees if they preserve more trees. And then the next thing is we're moving towards impervious lot coverage instead of just building coverage. This is going to be a pretty big deal. And we've done a lot of spatial analysis using GIS to see how this might work in the county. It's going to be based on a percentage or square footage, and I'll have an example here in just a little bit. But I think this will really help when it comes to individual residential properties that just have a lot of impervious cover, whether that be parking areas, tennis courts, pools, large deck areas. So not just home footprint, but all these other structures that kind of add up and create little green space on a property that then maybe carries stormwater to another location or speeds up stormwater to another location. And then also we're looking at setbacks as away from lakes, including Lake Lemon, as a way of conserving the shoreline or what we can do there in terms of just trying to protect some of the resources, natural resources that we have. In terms of the use table, we're going to have more residential use options in the use table, which hopefully will result in, possibly more design options for people in the county. And that may lead to, developers encouraging more walkability, locating closer to infrastructure, things like that. And then we've also added wind turbine as a use. We don't see it very frequently, but we're wondering if it's something that might be coming in the future. Allowing solar panels in more zones by right, really trying to remove a lot of our regulatory requirements for solar panels. We haven't seen much complaints. We haven't seen much externalities of people adding solar panels. So we want to encourage that by reducing any unnecessary requirements that we have. And then allowing accessory livestock in more zoning districts. That's something that I have a personal interest in. I have a background in sustainable agriculture, so I'm interested in seeing, more small community garden and accessory livestock integration in some of these zoning districts that, have decent lot sizes and can accommodate things like chickens and things like that. And then in terms of subdivision updates, we're working through an idea for cluster subdivision types where you preserve a larger portion of green space and have residential on smaller lots. And that way you incentivize more residential lots by having the developer preserve a larger area of the land that's not suitable for development. And then right now, we currently require access to sewer for major subdivisions. So in order to have a lot of residential lots, we're asking them to be closer to infrastructure and services. And the purpose of that is really to keep rural, and urban. We also know that septics have a lifespan. And they're reliant upon an individual to maintain them and pump them. So sewer can sometimes be a more sustainable option. And then we have what's called sliding scale subdivision, similar to that cluster subdivision type, but in the rural zones to help preserve larger portions of land. And we're hoping that helps gear towards farmland preservation in the long term. So this is just going back to one of the examples I had for you regarding the impervious cover. So this is what one of our design standard tables would look like for one zoning district. So it's helpful for someone that really wants to locate a structure, locate structures on a property. How and where can I do that? Here are the standards. You have to have it set back from your lot lines a certain amount. You can only have so much impervious cover on your lot. So we're hopeful that this will make a big difference. This example for ag, it would exclude agricultural buildings. There's still some accommodations that we need to make just due to state statutes and other things. But we think that especially differentiating whether it's in a critical watershed or if it's outside of a critical watershed, this could be helpful just in terms of long-term sustainability. And then this is an example of our use table. So you have the 16 zones that we have currently drafted along the top, and then the uses are enumerated on the left-hand side. And then within each row, you can see whether the use is permitted. If it's blank, it's not permitted. If there's a C, it's conditional, which means it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals for approval. Or if it has a PS, that means it's permitted, but they have to follow certain standards. So this is just a snapshot of one page of our use table to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So with that, I just wanted to see if we could have a conversation. If you guys have any ideas or questions for me, I'd be happy to take them at this point.
Thank you, Jackie. Does anyone have anything they want to lead off with in terms of questions or ideas or conversation starters?
Jackie, would you explain the however many acres it is that people are saying have been taken out of development?
Sure, I can explain that, and that may be best explained by the table that I just pulled up a little bit ago, so I'm going to pull that back up. So prior to our most recent updates to the CDO map, so individuals can contact us and ask that they have their zoning map changed because they don't like it. So we've engaged in a lot of conversations with the Plan Commission, and they've geared staff towards making those updates depending upon that conversation and what that survey result was. So we've been making these piecemeal updates to the zoning map. But essentially on the right-hand side, to give you an example, this is the updated number. But prior, there was a number that showed that there would be like plus 10,000 acres of rural residential, or I think it was a higher number than negative for rural residential or rural. And then there was a 9,500 acre loss in residential districts. The misnomer there was that the table that was circulated did not have the word residential after rural. So all of our zones in these categories, all the way down to residential 1 up to agricultural, they all allow residential uses. So it's just whether the residential use is in more of a rural setting or if it's in more of an urban setting. So that was the distinction that was made that I think caused some confusion. Also, in the PowerPoint, I mentioned that we have a requirement for sewer. So even if you were going from a zone, let's say that requires 2.5 acres right now, and you move into a zone that's going to require you to have 5 acres, if you do not have access to sewer, you cannot create 2 lots anyways, even if it were to stay at the 2.5 acre minimum. You need 10 acres to subdivide. And that's a subdivision requirement that's been in place since the comprehensive plan. And the reason for that is so that you keep rural, rural, and urban, urban. So you're trying to drive all of your subdivisions and your development towards areas where there's infrastructure. And that was a vision or a value that was placed very highly by the community when we passed our comprehensive plan in 2012. So I guess to answer your question, we have done some updates to the draft zoning map. So now that acreage loss is going to look different, especially in this table. And that's due to the changes that we've talked to with the Plan Commission to reduce any nonconformities out in the county, make sure lot sizes are comparable to what is actually existing, and also those CDO survey feedback answers. But I will include with this online, when this goes to our CDO website, I will include a quick summary that also gives an example, like I mentioned, of the 5 acre tract going, or a 2.5 acre tract going to a 5 acre zone minimum. It's still not going to be able to be subdivided into 2. So you can't really conflate the subdivision ordinance with minimum lot sizes because we have an additional requirement for sewer. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
You mentioned incentives and requirements regarding tree conservation.
Yes.
Sounds great. Could you go into that a little bit more?
Yes, certainly. So right now, if you have a development site, and let's say your commercial site is a dimension of 100 feet long, per our current ordinance, you have to have, let's say 20 trees in that 100 feet. If you preserve a tree, whether it's deciduous or evergreen, pretend it's deciduous, depending on its caliber, it gets a value that counts for a certain number of trees. So let's say you have a 9-inch caliber deciduous tree. That would only count for 3 trees under our current ordinance. We're trying to work with our consultants to come up with a better value for incentivizing saving that tree, because we know it's probably has more environmental services than just 3 new small trees. It could have services that are more like 10 small trees. So we're just trying to come up with a way to incentivize that developer to say, hey, if you take out that one 9-inch caliber tree, you're gonna have to plant 20 trees. And that is, you know, at $300 per tree, a lot more valuable to a developer than saying, oh, it just counts for 3 trees. They're gonna be like, oh, I don't care about that. So not to say they don't care, but they may not develop or design around it as much. Along with an incentive, we may also have a certain requirement if it's feasible to say you cannot remove that tree unless you go through a process. So we're still trying to figure that out, but yeah.
Jackie, the Environmental Commission has been talking about working on a tree preservation ordinance.
Awesome.
Which it sounds like really that's what you're working on. And we would be delighted to be informed about what's going on with that and maybe be able to help out with it.
Awesome. Would that be a tree preservation ordinance for commercial and residential or just commercial?
I think so.
Okay.
We're intending for it to be more of an overarching.
Okay,
type.
great.
Be fantastic.
Be nice to save as many trees as we can.
Yes, yes.
Mhm. Yes, I think our ordinance will be definitely geared towards the commercial end of things, but if we can align it and give, you know, tips back and forth for best practices, that would be great.
Yeah.
When there is a lot built in a subdivision, they do have to put in like street tree, but it's certainly, we think that there could be a little bit more improvement in terms of trees planted with new subdivisions. That would be one thing that we could require at the building stage. It's a little more challenging for existing residential lots, especially in terms of enforcement of cutting down trees. And recently, I think we've gotten some challenge from that, especially as it relates to slope. So I would be curious what you guys all come up with.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Neil, it sounds like this is something that you'd be very valuable with.
This sounds great, yeah. I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah.
What does the timeline like for this look like?
I guess I'd just like to get started on it real soon and kind of get an idea of what it's going to entail, and then maybe we can come up with more of a timeline. So it might be helpful if everyone kind of looks at some tree preservation ordinances around the country and gets an idea. It probably is most helpful if you look at ones in the zones like ours.
Mhm.
With that in mind, is there any incentive in this plan to prioritize specific native trees versus potentially harmful trees?
Yeah, we don't want people just preserving like
For example,
Bradford pears.
Back to that 9-inch DBH or caliber, however it's measured tree, if it's, for example, like a calorie pear that is becoming more and more of a nuisance versus a native species, it should potentially be incentivized differently. I'm just curious if there's any thought on that.
Yes, so in terms of our ordinance currently, we have only allowing native plants. So we have tables of native plants. We're going to be restructuring it a little bit to better categorize those native plants in different placements on a lot. So like we have requirements for trees to be within parking islands of parking lots. So we're trying to be sensitive to the types of trees that would do well in those areas and also not have like, you know, a lot of, you know, like tree nuts or other things that may cause nuisances to parking lots. So yes, we have been working diligently with different experts in Monroe County, and we actually have somebody that's started Ecologic working in our office. So they're very well versed on what landscaping is best and what is not. And we also have a limitation on cultivars, which has recently been, we've gotten some variance requests from that, which is interesting, but we can't have more than 50% cultivars in any area. And because of that, I think, and Bloomington does a good job too, I think we're driving the market at local landscape companies to make sure that they're keeping native landscaping in their inventory. And when they're not, we're requiring them to show us invoices, and we've made people replant items. We've made them overplant because they didn't plant enough of a native species. And if they plant invasive, we just tell them you have to dig that out, and that's just not acceptable. So we will hold up their occupancy if they do that. So we've been very strict about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Any ideas on how they're looking at calculating the worth of a tree in terms of preservation? Like, are they looking at carbon sequestration potential, or, you know, erosion control, or is it just up in the air right now totally? Habitat preservation, that sort of thing.
That's a good question. I don't know that they have like a calculation maybe behind the scenes. I think we're hoping to have, you know, we want clear language, but we also want language that's based in context. So that makes it sometimes tricky to say, well, you know, let's look at the tree and then figure out its worth, right? Because we have different planners and different people in the public. They may not all be able to identify the tree quickly, and be able to like do a lot of different like difficult, you know, if it's at all subjective calculations at all. So we need to make sure that what we have in the text is easily interpreted by the public. So certainly we can require a tree inventory showing the actual tree species, its caliber, height. We can, you know, show its water drip line. We can, you know, do that kind of thing. But in terms of, I don't know if there's like a database or a way of like, if there is another resource that does evaluate trees and tree species differently, we would definitely be open to that if like certain categories of trees should count more based on a certain aspect of them, or you know, we're open. So if you guys have that kind of information, we'd be happy to see it. I do know we're thinking, if not the incentive, we may actually need to be more on the enforcement side of things. So we do need to kind of think through how that works. Like, you know, here's your incentive. Well, I'm not going to take it. Well, then you're going to have to go through a variance, you know? So like, we're going to have to like, be careful in how we communicate that, or be clear on how we communicate that. It's not only an incentive, but it's actually a requirement. So, yeah.
The devil's in the details. I was just thinking, because a tree with a really expansive root system might be more valuable next to a water source versus, you know, maybe a tree with more carbon sequestration potential might be more valuable elsewhere than in that circumstance. And, you know, how do you judge what's more valuable in one area and less valuable in another? Which is why.
Mhm.
So it's complicated.
And our landscaping ordinance does require landscaping to be healthy in perpetuity, but we do know, you know, it's not perfect with the preservation of trees with that large root system. You know, development can kill a tree and you won't see it for 2 years. So we don't want to be in the business of going around and trying to enforce which trees have died. We hope that they'll be honest, and or if they come back for a new site plan, we do come back to that old landscaping plan and go out and check it before they continue. But yeah, some things to think about. That's definitely interesting. Do you have any kind of website or study that you're referencing in terms of like evaluating them, certain trees near water sources or those trees for carbon sequestration?
I've definitely read stuff about that, but I'd have to go back and find it. I've been in school a long time at this point, but I can definitely hunt for it and send it to you when I find it.
Okay, that'd be interesting. I appreciate that.
Jackie, how about people who have owned property for ages and it's been invaded? Like with calorie pairs?
Yes, you know, I think I want to talk to maybe someone at the city of Bloomington, because I know they do have some requirements in terms of like, especially bamboo, invasive
Yeah.
bamboo. And maybe we could start with that low hanging fruit if there's any properties that have that. As you know, like the county is just so massive compared to the city, and people may have 300 acres. So to tell someone, a farmer, at your fence line, clean up all of the honeysuckle would be like so much money.
Yeah.
And we don't know if we have the resources to be able to enforce that. But I do like the idea of it, and I hope that organizations like MC Iris and other good organizations out there would be able to communicate and offer information. Certainly I feel like our role is to encourage people not to plant new invasives. But as far as enforcing existing invasives, it's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah, just the kind of west central, just west of the northwest industrial park, where they planted calorie pears all the way through that park. And they've now spread like 5 miles west from there. And
Yes.
it's a problem.
Yeah.
Does this ordinance change impact construction requirements at all, like easements or fencing or erosion control, that sort of thing?
Yes, it will impact quite a bit in terms of, I think the impervious cover is going to be a pretty big one. We'll probably see variances from that in the interim until we kind of figure out that right percentage. But I think that also we're looking at ways to balance whether certain commercial properties must have gravel versus must have pavement in the rural areas. And then landscaping, we currently have it where we require a lot of landscaping in a small width. And so we've actually questioned some of the density requirements that we have, if it's viable long-term. So we've been able to see some of the sites come to fruition, like IU Credit Union at the corner of Jonathan and Third or Whitehall. That was landscaped under this ordinance, and it's pretty dense. So I sometimes see that and I'm like, maybe, it would be good to space it out a little bit to make sure everything can stay alive or have a wider width. We're also playing around with the idea of having sort of a la carte options for people, like in parking lots, to have a best management practice is like kind of a grassy or a landscape swale down the middle of a parking lot with a pedestrian walkway connecting the two halves. Yeah, lighting, we're going to be a lot more stringent on lighting, commercial lighting, make sure it's downward facing. We do not want any light pollution contributing to the county. So yeah, there'll be quite a few changes.
If I could amend my question, it's not specifically about, impervious surface requirements or landscaping requirements, but when I was at the city, we also had ordinances controlling, like, if you were building near a riparian buffer, you needed to have, netting to prevent erosion into that stream. Are those sorts of requirements, of the actual construction process, not the construction design,
see.
impacted by this ordinance update?
I see. So actually, Stormwater has their own ordinance separate
Okay.
from planning, and they will be adopting their new ordinance on June 5th, hopefully. So
Okay.
they will be having new standards that comply with state requirements. They are going to be a lot more specific and have those best management practices laid out for developers to be able to see, okay, this is my site. These are the types of management practices I should have. So yeah, they're going to have a lot more information in their ordinance than before, including a technical standards manual that will be sort of an appendix to the ordinance to give people exact specifications.
Perfect.
Yeah, it could be worth taking a look at that.
Yeah.
It's,
I didn't realize it was,
it just came to the stormwater for yesterday.
Okay, I thought they had a little longer until they got a hold of it.
No, it's gone through drainage and they recommended it and Stormwater has voted on it and recommended it. So now it comes to the commissioners on June 5th.
Oh, okay, that's what.
And then assuming we vote for it, then it becomes law.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Julia, I just saw your hand raise. Can you hear us? Just trying. Okay. This is why I don't like technology. Sure. Okay. Any other questions for Jackie or comments?
And now I hand
Hi
this.
there. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you.
You're very faint.
Okay, well, the chat and mic and camera was all disabled.
Oh,
I don't know
Yeah.
if you can hear me.
We can
Can
hear
you?
We can
and-
hear you.
Okay. I just had a question about, I'm loving this, by the way, but I just had a question about like possibly incentivizing retention of snags or dead trees. I think most landowners are inclined to remove those immediately, even if they're not threatening structures. However, they're really, they provide a lot of really important ecosystem services. So I was just curious about that, if that's been considered.
Yeah, that's a great question. We do have conservation easements that are required in some subdivisions. So even if there is a dead tree, we actually do not allow people to remove dead trees from those areas, even if they've fallen, if it doesn't present immediate danger. This is also true in the environmental constraints overlay, which protects Griffey and Monroe. So we do have anywhere on steep slopes greater than 12%, in some areas up to 18%. You're not allowed to cut any vegetation, and that includes trees that are dying or appear to be dying without an arborist stating and certifying that the tree is dead and that it's going to cause immediate danger to a structure. So would love to see that expanded, and I agree that's
Yeah.
important.
we
Awesome.
actually, the commissioners frequently, for example, Parks and Rec has to deal with trees quite a bit. And we always ask them to leave the snags as long as they won't be a danger to anyone. And we've also done that in stormwater. So we're kind of doing it in a piecemeal sort of way, but it would be nice to have it specified.
Wonderful. Any other comments, questions, interesting facts? Well, thank you, Jackie. I guess my last question would be, is there anything specific you would like us to do or like from us as a commission? As the ordinance goes through?
So I think, actually, when I went to look up the Environmental Commission on the county website, I wanted to see who the current board members were, and it's nice to see you all. I found that we had actually, planning had gone to an Environmental Commission in 2022 with we had a tree loss or tree canopy loss report that we brought to you guys. So I think that I'm really interested in the report that you guys would be creating in terms of tree preservation or tree incentivizing language for residential. We are trying to, of course, always balance the needs for keeping the development process for residential affordable, but also offering a balance of, you know, okay, you had to take out X number of trees to put in your house. Is it reasonable to ask you to put X number of trees back? So always interested in that kind of thought process that other people have. And then we're going to be releasing the landscaping ordinance probably in the next 2 months. So I would be absolutely interested in sending that out to you all for your specific comments. We also have a karst chapter, so that's related to sinkhole conservancy areas. That'll be partially in stormwater and partially in our ordinance. We have a floodplain chapter, which is kind of state required, so you could give us feedback, but we still have to adopt it almost as is. And then we also have the environmental constraints overlay chapter, which should be interested in your feedback for that. That's around Lake Monroe and Griffey, and it does relate to tree preservation or land disturbance and soil erosion. So happy to get any of your feedback on and any of those environmental oriented chapters.
Could you possibly send me or Andrew that list
As,
of chapters?
as they get available,
Mm-hmm.
and we can disseminate them and
Yeah.
get you back feedback. When, is there a target date to have the ordinance finalized and enacted?
By the end of the year,
Okay,
and that's a pretty solid.
that's a good deadline, yeah.
I mean, we're quite determined to get there.
It's been a long time that we've been working on this, so we'd be really happy to have something that, even if it, you know, later down the line could use some amendments, it's gonna be worlds of difference to what we have right now, which is a lot of piecemeal information together. It just needs to be an overhaul.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been a long time since we've done this, and
Mhm.
COVID kind of did mess things up quite a bit.
Can I ask one more question, just out of curiosity? Does the numbers on here, does that take into account identified annexation zones?
So we are just including the county boundary as it is, in some of our back evaluation of what things should be zoned. Of course, if it is an annexation zone, that tells us it's likely to have access or immediate access to some of those infrastructure items I talked about. So maybe it's well suited for higher development. So we took it into account in terms of density or use, but it wasn't, we didn't like exclude those parcels, if that makes sense. Because they will have to be zoned. So legally, whatever the county has it zoned as, the if it were to be annexed, the city would have to take it under that zoning designation until they rezoned it. So we really, you know, no matter what happens with it, we don't want the carpet to shift out from underneath people. We want to keep it pretty consistent, hopefully, for those folks, because, you know, we're all in Monroe County, technically.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jackie, for joining us this evening.
Yeah.
As we get this information from you, I'll disseminate it out to everyone. We'll get you back any feedbacks or ideas we have, and we may call you, invite you back in, I should say, at a future meeting, once we have some of those ideas formulated and enough to discuss in depth.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the invite. And if you guys have, you know, environmental commission, sustainability, climate change, awesome. If you guys have like a target area focus and you want to say like, hey, we're really focusing on trees right now, I can certainly send you resources to that regard. But if you guys just want it all, I can certainly send it all too. So I'll just send you the chapters we talked about, and happy to return if you have questions or want to have a further discussion.
Great.
Thank you, Jackie, so much.
Thank you so much.
All right,
work.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Perfect. Moving on then to the next item, unless there's any conversation anyone has about.
Yeah, I think this is exciting and I think, I'm eager to, tickle the brains of some IFA folks and, get some ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have different focuses environmentally that we can divvy up. So we're not all going through 3,000 pages of
Yeah.
language
This
and
is-
ideas.
This is really exciting, and I would love to, review it from a wildlife perspective.
Yeah. Yes, that's a lot of my interest also. But trees are just in general a big interest.
Yeah, I helped, when I was on the city environmental commission was when we did the last big development ordinance change, so.
Yeah,
Speaking of, when she sends the documents, I'd love to learn if we're able to share that with trusted colleagues or,
these are all public.
oh, they are,
I
okay.
think she said as they become
Yeah.
public, she'll send them.
Oh, okay.
And there's a website, I don't know the exact URL, but it's the CDO.
It's
I have
planning
both.
slash CDO, I think.
It's, there's Monroe CDO.com/plans, -code/ yeah,
Slash all, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll send that out, the link out in the email, so everyone has it, and then as we get information, we can pass that along to you, and feel free to focus on areas of particular interest to you, I would say.
Yeah, well,
I'm not gonna force you to work on something you don't
I
find
don't
interesting.
know that we can actually write an I mean, I know we can try to write an ordinance and the lawyers will
Hmm,
then rewrite it.
yeah, anything that would be legal, I wanna call legal in and have
Yes,
that
yeah.
before anything happens with it.
But I kind of like because planning is a little restricted in what they can apply it to.
Mhm.
I think more of an overarching county ordinance is really what we want to look at.
Yeah. And amendments to that, from the proposal might be easier, because it might be as simple as changing, a 10 to a 15 or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Cool. All right, moving on to our next item on the agenda is approval of our commission minutes from our April 18th, 2024 meeting. They don't have any amendments to the minutes that I sent out. I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval of the minutes.
second,
All right, so moved and seconded. Andy?
Aye.
Lee?
Yeah.
Neil?
Aye.
Julia?
Yep.
As well, minutes are approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the report from council. Councilor Iverson's not here. So move on to our report for commissioners. Commissioner Jones, any updates?
Well, I think the exciting thing that we've been working on is this stormwater ordinance, or really it's a drainage ordinance. And it's going to tighten up a lot of things quite a bit. Doing our best to ameliorate the effects of the 24% slopes. Which, we're going to require soil tests and various different things like that, probably. Hopefully, something about the number of trees that that would be important, that as many trees as possible be kept on slopes. So, and there's going to be a lot more karst preservation than we've had currently. So it's really kind of exciting. And it's pretty readable. The technical manual is less so.
Leave that to the engineers.
Yeah.
Perfect. Any questions for Commissioner Jones? Perfect. We get a copy of the stormwater ordinance?
Sure. Yeah,
Just for
yeah.
interest.
it's probably on the front page of the web, I hope.
I'll distribute that out to everyone.
Did you find it? Do you see it?
I
Okay,
can't find it. I will let you
yes, yeah, please do, because I've got copies of it.
know. Excellent. All right. Moving on to our next item is reports and comments from commission members. Any commission members have any reports or comments or fun facts? Okay.
well, I was just in DC for past 4 days, met with the entire Indiana delegation, the offices of the Indiana delegation and Senators Braun and Young. So, so S 2990 that the, commission, endorsed, is currently in the Senate Farm Bill attached to Stabenow's,
Oh.
Senate Farm Bill.
Wow,
It's a part of a bipartisan lands package, that includes, I believe the Shawnee and Virginia Wilderness and one other. But it is currently still not introduced in the House. So I did, meet with, Representative Houchin's office, her legislative director. And we are, ramping up the pressure, to, encourage her to introduce it, soon. And if, you know, it seems like a farm bill might not happen this year again.
yeah.
So in the case that it doesn't happen, then we're looking for alternative routes for that.
Uh-huh.
But, and so it's, you know, we're hopeful that Representative Houchin will introduce the bill in the House. So we're waiting to find out and hope that she does, so.
I'm out of the loop. Has the Farm Bill passed the Senate or is it just being debated?
It is not passed the Senate.
That'd be a result.
Well, that sounds like some positive movement.
Yeah,
It's not just stuck in committee, so.
well,
Or has it made
Right,
it to a
right.
committee?
that's right, so, yeah, there's been some progress on it, but, yeah, I think we're more focused on the House side now and figuring out where it is there. Because until that happens and we can't figure out any kind of alternative place that it can go and, you know, what we can attach it to and, you know, how to get it over the finish line.
Oh, it's a funding bill. Oh. Yeah. So, and the House is a mess right now, so,
The House is the best.
right now, as if it hasn't been for 8 years.
Sorry, yeah, the Ag Committee is, actually, we do have a member of the Indiana delegation on the Ag Committee, Representative Baird. So we spoke with his office at length and we were making the rounds, so went to, gosh, when I wasn't in a meeting, I would, in my free time, I would go and pop in another office and say, hey, can you get me in this time? Nope, all right, get another meeting, I'll be back. So, and it worked. So actually, even met with the Speaker of the House's office, and,
Great,
you know, as part of Sierra Club Wildlands Lobby, team, so.
Yeah.
Encouraging things like keeping, some IRA stuff, in the Farm Bill and encouraging the House to pass Stabenow's version of the Farm Bill.
Yeah.
But once again, the House is the best.
And you got a resolution in the hands, again?
So thank you for that.
No problem, sorry, I took some.
No worries.
Fine. Any reports from?
Just a fun side note, no action needed.
I was gonna say no baby
Yeah,
yet.
no baby yet, but I did sponsor a proclamation for the state of India for Pollinator Week.
Oh,
That was
okay.
approved, so June 17 through 23 this year.
Oh, remind me, and we can do a proclamation about it.
Fun, yeah. But yeah,
People need to hear more about
Yeah.
pollinators and
What
why
dates?
they matter.
17th through 23rd of June.
I said July, that being my birthday week.
Sorry. I didn't take that into account, but
I know, how dare you?
again, no action needed from us, I just excited.
No one loves pollinators more than I. My only announcement is that I've been appointed to BCOS by the commissioners. They had to cancel their meeting last week due to a technical issue with the city. But it should be scheduled for next week. I'll keep you all updated from henceforth.
Great.
On anything interesting they're doing. They're still electing leadership, so. I'll let you know.
Sounds good.
Any other reports, comments? Cool. Moving on to our next item of business is old business. We would have had a ERI resilience fellow update from Counselor Iverson. Do you know anything?
I haven't heard anything at all from him. The Blue Ribbon Committee was canceled today and
Are they having
I
quorum
didn't
issues?
even know. Pardon?
Are they still having quorum issues?
I don't know. I think the problem is that no one's getting enough notice of the meetings.
Oh, okay.
And
Are they not a scheduled time or are they just?
Well-
ad hoc?
they've tried to schedule times, but due to a lack of quorum, they can't vote on a schedule.
Oh, no, there has to be a way out of that.
Yeah.
That's-
So it is a problem. But I think I'm going to try to take a more active role in
Knocking some heads into
notifying,
attendance.
well, notifying meetings and maybe doing something with agendas and all, because I don't know, I'm just not hearing much of
You
anything.
can send people desperate emails at 10 PM asking them to come in person, like
Yeah,
some of us.
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the group is a good group. So.
It's just, yeah, like I said, mission meetings in the summer is like herding cats.
Yeah, yeah,
Everyone's
Greg
doing
was on that,
something.
right?
pardon?
Greg, gosh, Marilyn Bochel's is with Greg,
Oh. I'm so, the worst attribute of a politician, I'm not good with names.
Meet a lot of
that's
people.
okay, clearly I'm not either.
Well, and I meet so many people at the market as well, I mean, just
Yeah.
too many different aspects.
Trying to see if they have their number, they do not have a number list. Okay. So our next item on the agenda is the Blue Ribbon Commission, no update because they've been canceled.
Yeah,
Moving on, Monroe County Development Ordinance, so I think I was under the impression that it was all publicly available currently, but she said she's gonna release some
she's.
this
going-
week, some
she's
next
going to-
week.
Oh, those are like particular chapters.
Okay,
There is. It's on the website. But it's still there as a draft.
okay,
And there may be certain parts that still have to get filled in.
gotcha, okay. So I'll send out what's available, to everyone. And like I said before, if you are interested in a particular chapter or a particular area, feel free to just focus on that. No sense in making people read and go through ideas for subjects they're not interested in or experiencing. Sound good?
Yep,
Mhm.
although I would like some focus on trees.
I was planning on doing that anyway. So yes, we're covered there.
Okay,
Cool, and then we will, at our next meeting, I would like if people came at least with general thoughts, ideas, nitpicks to see what, nothing's, you don't have to come with, I want to change this to this and blah, 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 but, hey, I was looking at the impervious lot coverage requirements and they seem a little, generous. Those sorts of
well,
things.
and then there's also always, if you're really a detail person, there are always slightly ambivalent words and things like that it's good to watch out for.
Law school has taught me that
Yeah,
the word may put somewhere is dangerous.
yes. Must,
Yeah.
shall.
Good. Yeah, lot of different. So we'll send those out and then no need to tell us what you're claiming, just self-discipline on what you want to do and come with general ideas and then we can move forward from there.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Moving on to new business, I wanted to discuss department heads to either bring into meetings or to meet outside of these meetings individually or in small legally acceptable groups. About the budgets process coming up in the fall. Because there are certain departments, I think, that we are more likely to have an interest or impact on budget wise in conversations with department heads than others.
Yeah,
There's really nothing we can talk to city legal or county legal about, for example. That would benefit the environmental commission, but the planning department or parks and recreation. And I was gonna ask if any of you,
stormwater.
if any of you had stormwater,
And
had specific
stormwater
departments.
is kind of it's under highway. And While stormwater would be more directly relevant, highway does have to deal with a lot of issues that we might want to know about and possibly have comments on.
Do we have veg and wildlife departments?
No,
Yeah,
No.
what's the closest?
I think, so my understanding from the county is that the environmental aspects are kind of sprinkled amongst departments
They're-
depending on relevance.
they're mostly, they're statutory departments and then there are
Yeah.
departments that are under the commissioners.
Mhm.
They're almost all under the commissioners. And the commissioners kind of are the ones who are dealing with all of this. We've talked about a sustainability director. I would love to see that. It's not just a matter of budget, though. It's kind of a matter of where would they go
Organization.
and who would they be under? Most of the department heads kind of feel like they have enough going on. And,
Who wants to create a new department?
right.
Yeah.
And so, but that's something that it'd be good to just keep in mind. It would help to aggregate everything, I think.
Are there any statutory elected offices you think?
Possibly, well, the plan commission.
Yeah.
Possibly the building department. Although, no, that's under us also.
Yeah, I was thinking like auditor, obviously not auditor, but those sorts of elected positions.
I possibly surveyor, but I don't
Ron,
really
yeah.
think that that's going to,
Yeah, that's more technical.
yeah, right.
So I have down planning, obviously, Parks and Rec, and stormwater under highway.
Mhm.
Any other stick out to you as natural? We don't need to go too broad,
Yeah,
targeted list is
I mean-
acceptable.
I don't think building, I think they really are specifically buildings, so I don't think they would be relevant.
Do they handle like the county buildings?
Part,
Does the buildings department, excuse my ignorance, do they handle county building, like
they
maintenance
handle
infrastructure?
all buildings.
All buildings,
We have an agreement with the city so that our building department.
I'm embarrassed you would ask that.
God, I'm so strong. Like they, like safety codes and stuff, is that what they handle, or,
Yeah,
yeah, that's not really our
yeah, I
circle.
don't think that would be very relevant. But who did I just think of and now I forgot?
Pulling up in the row. Yeah.
Oh, health.
Health,
Health might,
Hmm.
I don't really know, but
environmental health is important.
yeah,
I'll put a question mark.
I mean, we might want to see if they have anything going on, but,
Yeah,
I mean, of course, they're in charge of septics and all of that, so.
yeah. And I know, Friends of Lake Monroe released a report a number of years ago. And they identified septic regulations as a, big part of lake pollution that they wanted to look at.
Yeah.
Airport animal management, owner, health, parks and rec, soil and water conservation.
Yeah, soil and water conservation is, it's a separate department. It's really not even exactly a county department. They're,
Yeah, I noticed they have their own website.
yeah,
They have a .org.
and, we pay some of their salaries and,
Studo gov
so, yeah,
office.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm fine.
And I know she would love to come and talk about soil health,
Hmm.
which is something that I get a bit impassioned over also.
As someone who studied ecology in grad school, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think this list is enough. So it's, to clarify, it's planning, parks and rec, stormwater, health, question mark, soil, water conservation.
And
question.
as we decide, you might want to let me know, so I invite them.
Yes,
So,
I was planning on, I would love to have someone like from Parks and Rec to come in or whatever as available next meeting.
It might be that storm water would be,
Yeah, whoever's available to come
and I mean, there's more going on with that right at this,
right at this moment. Yeah,
so.
yeah, we'll discuss what makes sense for next meeting and then we'll go from there. And
Okay.
then I would love for the department heads to come with their current going ons and what their major duties are so that we can
Mhm.
brainstorm
Yeah.
ideas that would align with an environmental
Yeah, I
value.
think that would be a good idea.
Perfect. Anything else on this topic? I'm trying really hard to get Andy home before so I can swim.
Oh, no, you're good. No calls yet.
All right. That's the last time on the agenda. Rather brief meeting. So unless there's anything else anyone has, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Certainly. We are adjourned. 6:36 PM. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.